Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee. Before we get started, I'm going to announce that we're going to move item 74 to the end after item 77 because it has a part 2. So everyone can leave and just leave the committee here for part 2. So, Neil, do we have any apologies?
No apologies, Chair, but Councillor Jorgensen is joining us on Teams.
Thank you. Okay, minutes of the previous meeting. Do we have any comments on the previous minutes? Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Nope. Everybody happy? Can I have a show of hands? It's good. Yes. Neil, that's agreed. Okay, are there any declarations of interest, Neil? Oh, sorry, anybody?
Thank you. Item 74, I'm a trustee of class. Thank you.
Anybody else? No. Okay, do we have any public questions? This is a question for you, Neil.
No questions from the public, town and parishes or councillors, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, on to item 71, the leader and CEO update. Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Susan and I will be presenting this. I think Susan has a presentation which I think we want to try and put on screen if we can find a way of doing it.
Yes, sorry, I'm just whispering to Neil.
So we'll just wait a moment while that comes up.
Familiar outline.
There we are. Do you think we can move on to the next page? Possibly not.
It's moving on my screen, but not on that screen.
It's in full screen.
Well,
If you email it across to me after, I'll try and get that there.
you could say it leaves me with a completely blank canvas. So. So we're going to have another go.
Just waiting for it to travel through space.
Through the 2 meters between. Well, it pops it a bit more than 2
I'll
meters.
send it to you as well, Glenn, so who gets there quicker, on me or Neil to you.
What was the issue? Could I get to hear, okay?
The officers are having trouble presenting the presentation. on the screen.
I can see
Here
it
it is.
perfectly.
Here we
Here
are.
it is.
Good. Excellent. Well, this is the acid test. Can we move on to page 2? Yes, we can. Thank you. Wonderful. There we are. Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, I think a lot of this will be pretty familiar to you. The update on the challenges is really dominated by, obviously, the thing that's been uppermost in our minds for some time. That's the local government 3-year finance settlement. And its less than positive impact on Wokingham. I think that's putting it very politely. Over the next 3 years, it looks as though we will, when grants and retained business rates are combined, we look as though we're going to have an overall loss of £43.6 million on our government revenue support. So that's a really significant financial challenge. I'm glad to say that we are working hard on ways in which we can mitigate this challenge. I think the key things to highlight at the moment are that we are, compared with many councils, in a relatively strong position. I think thanks to the very good work done over many years, we have a healthy level of reserves, and we have in particular an earmarked reserve which has been accumulated to help mitigate the impact of a reduction in government funding. And we'll obviously be using that as part of our way of dealing with year 1 and quite possibly into years 2 and 3 as well. We also, I think, have a really strong commitment to improving the efficiency of the council, its productivity. We already have a pretty good record on this. About 18 months ago, I think it is now, Empower assessed the councils in England that offered Tier 1 services, that's adults and children's social care as part of their areas of responsibility. And we were ranked 5th out of more than 150 in terms of the productivity of our spend, so outcomes achieved per pounds spent. That was a very good achievement. I think we could be justly proud of that. There'll be another Empower survey result coming out soon, so we'll wait with bated breath to see what that's going to be. I think the general message, though, is that we will be continuing to put a lot of effort into improving productivity. That will be deploying all the technology available to us to help improve productivity wherever possible. I mentioned the Empower survey. It is worth reflecting that there were 2 common factors that linked the top 10 councils in the Empower survey. One was a real commitment to partnership working. And that commitment to partnership working is one we most definitely have here. Obviously, one thinks of our external partnerships. We're going to see a little bit about our external partnerships later in this agenda when we consider the report on the VCS partnership. The VCS is one of the vital external partners we have, and we're immensely grateful for the work they do for people in the borough, and we want to work alongside them in a very productive way. As we have been doing, we want to continue that. We also want to work with business, with the University of Reading, with which we have a strategic partnership. And we're going to be working also to try and develop our internal partnerships. It's vitally important, especially in the context of dealing with the financial challenge we have over the next 3 years, that we maximise the way in which every challenge that the council faces is a corporate challenge, not a departmental or a directoral challenge. And there's been some excellent work done in the last few years to really increase the way in which different directorates and departments work together. and we're going to see some instances of that later in this report as well. A vitally important element, which leads on to the second common denominator of the Empower Survey Top 10, which is a very close and productive working relationship between officers and councillors, and that's something that Wokingham has been blessed with, and it will continue. My strong belief is it's very important that all councillors support, encourage and appreciate the role that officers play. So we will be continuing all of those efforts, but we will be having to do lots of other things too in order to get through this financial challenge. I don't think I want to say anything more on the challenges.
Okay,
Do you want to say something, Susan?
Thank you very much, Stephen. If I can just add some points to the different themes that we've got on this slide. So the point about finance, I wanted to add about DSG, and to say that clearly government have said that they will take on the deficits from 28-29. We don't know the detail of it yet. And also it's unclear what's going to happen about existing DSG deficits and what will build up in terms of deficits up until 28-29. So that's something that obviously we are lobbying on as well, because we do need that clarity, because that together with the fair funding allocation is going to have a significant impact on the council. So I just wanted to add that point to that particular theme. On the inequalities theme, so we've come before and talked about the fact that that Marmot is really important to us, and we want everybody to have the opportunity to thrive. And I wanted to mention that, you know, of course, that includes us really listening to people's voices, and by agreeing to the community's vision, as in, you know, that was a communities driven vision, and we were very much there in terms of an enabler, and that's really important in terms of that equalities point, and the fact that enabling communities to thrive was at the heart of that is really, really good. And as well as sort of really listening, what's really important is co-production. So that's another way of really engaging with people with lived experience. So our send and inclusion strategy, that was very much co-produced. And also we've got the work with adult services with lived experience as well. So those are examples that really fall under that sort of equalities theme there. Social care future was the word I was looking for. So we're really proud of being part of the social care future movement. And on the partnership point, I think that, you know, it's about the council knowing itself and knowing when to enable, when to facilitate and when to get out of the way as well. So I think that that's really important in terms of partnership working. So that's, you know, we can constantly really think about, you know, what's our role, and I think it's really interesting that in terms of the CQC and the outcome from the adult services CQC inspection, where we were rated third in the country, partnerships was one of the exceptional sort of areas in that CQC inspection. And I think that that final point about demand, if I think back a few years, and we looked at the real sort of drivers for big expenditure, and those drivers included placements. So placements for children's, adults, and move-on accommodation, and housing for people with disabilities. And as a organisation, we really took a grip on really understanding, you know, what was driving the spend, and then sought to put in place ways to not only save money but also get better outcomes. So that's where that's building and purchasing accommodation for people with lived experience or adults with lived experience, and also purchasing care homes and children's homes comes into council. I really just wanted to mention that point about demand here. It's, you know, we take that really seriously in understanding demand and understanding what drives our budget pressures, because that's really important when it comes to the budget, and then mitigating against that, but ensuring that we continue to get better outcomes for residents.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Susan. Yes, you're right, of course, that investor save, prevention and early intervention are vital parts of the way we try to manage demand and ensure that we address problems as early as we can, so that we avoid their becoming much more difficult to handle and much more costly to handle later on. I wonder whether we can move on to the next slide, making an impact. And I think it's important, again, in the context of what we've just been talking about the financial challenges, to recognise that despite those financial challenges, we remain ambitious to do things, to improve things, to make things better in the borough. There's a lot of good stuff here. I'm not going to talk about it all. You'll be relieved to know. Just one thing that Susan's already mentioned is the Adult Social Care Services inspection and assessment by the Care Quality Commission. Extremely good outcome. Very strong endorsement, I think, of the work of our adult social care team. Very encouraging. The good news, of course, that work started on the sixth form at Bowhunt School, and also in the south of the borough. It's worth stressing the really great progress that's been made on the Gorse Ride regeneration project. That is now really moving on apace. New properties are being occupied, and it's really good to see that project coming to fruition. A lot of time and effort over a long period of time has been put into this. We've been very successful as a council in getting money from Homes England to try and improve the quantity as well as the quality of affordable housing that we have in the borough. We've been more successful, I have to say, than any other of the Berkshire unitary councils in securing Homes England funding, and that has helped us with Gorse Ride. And then the final thing I would like to highlight out of all these things is the last thing, December 25, the youth politics evening organised by council officers in association with the Youth Council. That was an enormous success, I thought. The young people involved were asked some really searching and impressive questions. They carried out a vote before the debate as to which way people wanted to vote, and then they carried out another vote afterwards, which is always a bit scary for the people involved. What was most noticeable, there weren't any kind of great shifts of opinion, but what was noticeable, the people who were undecided before had now made a decision. They'd heard what was said and were making a decision. So it really did, I think, interest and excite the young people there. And as one of the people at the meeting being questioned, I thought it was a really good event, really good, and I hope we can organise more of those. It's vitally important we engage with young people. Do you want to add anything on making an impact, Susan?
Just a couple of points. I am going to mention that CQC inspection again, because to get third in the best in the country is pretty amazing, and actually have seen a real pathway in terms of improvement over the years. So it's we were able to articulate that to the inspectors, I think, which is really fantastic. So the only other one I want to mention on here is about the annual staff conference, because we had that in can't remember now which month it was. I think it was October, and you know, why I wanted to mention it, it's really, really important in terms of engagement with all staff in the organisation, and really, you know, talk about priorities. And Stephen was there as well, which was really fantastic to have Stephen there for the 2 days. Talk about our priorities, and then talk about things like we talked about corporate parent. We'll come on to that in a moment, and it's really real great opportunity to talk about that side of things, and the culture of the organisation, because that's really important, because ultimately people, our teams, need to deliver, you know, are delivering the services that matter to residents. So so that side of things is really important, as well as the day-to-day, obviously, management and leadership in terms of the organisation. So I think we're going to go on to the spotlight, and I think I'm going to go for the first two themes in the spotlight quite quickly. So I just mentioned about the corporate parenting offer, and hopefully we'll go on to the next slide. So this is a bit of a focus on children's. So in terms of the corporate parenting offer, the corporate parenting board has been reformed. You might not be able to see that, but we can send the slides out afterwards. The corporate parenting board has been reformed. Those of you who may be a member on that board, and where we've got a young person who's co-chairing the board, which is great, and really, really good to see, and cross-party representation and support there. In terms of the corporate parenting as well, the young people, you know, the children and young people we care for, actually developed a letter themselves as to what they want from the council, you know, to help them thrive. And it was that letter that was read out by a young person at the colleague conference, and it's incredibly powerful. And I'm sure that we could bring it back to this group if you would like a presentation on this. And you know, it was really, really fantastic to have that real sort of clarity and powerful message. And as it says on here, there's the participation service has been created, and this is about having young experts helping us with our policy. You know, I talked about before the importance of people with lived experience actually helping shape our policies. That's really important. So again, we've got the participation service which has been created. And the only other point that I'll mention here is that we're going to have all council job descriptions referencing being a corporate parent. So that is going to happen. And then the youth needs assessment, over 2,000 young people actually gave their views as part of the youth needs assessment. And it's about us taking forward what the young people have said. So the second theme, if we just move on to the second theme, this is about the local offer for care leavers. So it's about the offer that we provide as an organisation to care leavers, because we are the corporate parent. We are all the corporate parent. That's our responsibility. So we've done some consultation with our young people and really thought and clarified the offer. And a report on the offer, I think, is coming to executive later on this month. And you can see from some of the points, or maybe you can't see the text, but we had a Dragon's Den approach in the council where young people were challenging officers in the organisation in terms of the local offer that we provide. So there was a scrutiny from our care leavers about the actual offer that we provide. So that's really just to give you a little bit of an idea. The whole idea of these particular slides is for you to have a bit of a taste, and I think it might be more appropriate for the portfolio holder and the DCS to talk to you about some of this in detail, should you want that. But it's just to give you a bit of a flavour about the detail of what's actually happening. So if we want to,
could we move on to the next one on homes insufficiency? Thank you. I just want to start this with something that's not actually mentioned, I think, in the presentation slides, but it's an important indication of how things are going. Bridges, which is, as you know, a children's home in Woodley. It's for short breaks. It was recently assessed as outstanding in all areas of the assessment, so that's an extremely good result, I think, for everyone involved. That inspection resounding success, outstanding in all areas. When it was previously inspected in 2024, we've been good rather than outstanding. So very marked uptick in our assessment there. I wanted to highlight also some things that are in the presentation. The new children's homes that we've opened, those are really important additional provision we've got in Borough. The increase in transitional needs accommodation. This is about helping people move on to a stage of independence, particularly care leavers, and then increasing the amount of accommodation we've got through working closely between different departments of the council, particularly the role of our housing colleagues in helping to ensure that specialist accommodation is made available where it's needed by both adults and children. And that's a really important way in which we can control future costs. I think those are the only things I wanted to mention on that page. Should we go on to next steps? And here, obviously, the really important thing is how we deal with the challenge of the fairer funding review or the 3-year local government finance settlement. There's a lot of things in there that we touched on already. One thing we haven't touched on, or isn't mentioned here, but we have touched on, is the importance of partnerships. And I think in the context of the really significant financial challenges the council faces, partnerships are going to become even more important than in the past. And one area I think we are going to need to work on in the next few months and years ahead is a new kind of relationship with town and parishes that recognises their role in their communities and gives them the opportunity, I think, to play a bigger role and one in partnership with the Borough Council in perhaps in ways that we haven't yet achieved. That's, I think, all I want to say. Did you want to add something?
I think the only thing that, a couple of points that I wanted to make in terms of the knowing ourselves point. So we do obviously use data to drive what we do, and I think that we will be doing that even more so. So it's that in terms of when we talk in terms of our priorities, in terms of say productivity being one of those, that comes back to really knowing ourselves, knowing what our teams deliver, knowing the cost of our services. So we will be doing more and more to actually understand that, and we should remodel should we need to. I'm not talking about big reorganisational change. I'm just talking about it's really important to remodel should we need to. And then the knowing our population absolutely is so important. Again, we have really sought to do that, but there's more that we can do to really understand the needs of our population, and it links to that Marmot Borough point. And the only other thing I wanted to talk about is that we are looking at how we use AI. Absolutely, that is a really important to us, because AI absolutely can be used in different scenarios to save in terms of our processes and enable us to focus our attention on other things. We've used that AI in HR, and that's had a really positive impact in terms of freeing up time for some of our HR team. And I think I mentioned this during ONS when we were talking about the budget. Process redesign is really important as well. And we have already done certain process redesign, but there's more that we absolutely can do.
I think that's it from us.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the... Andrew?
Thank you. I just want to, start off with a comment. You mentioned about the corporate parenting board and things like that, and I'd just like to echo those comments. I think the reforms of that, having it in person, have been huge, sitting on that, and I think we've had 2 or 3 meetings in person now, and I think it's been so nice to sort of meet people in person, but also to actually meet the young people chairing. And it's nice then to be able to catch up with them the following meeting and actually, you know, find out how they're doing. So I think that's definitely been a major improvement. I was just going to pick up on your point, Stephen, which I know wasn't on the slides, about the new relationship with towns and parishes, because I think that's a really interesting point. And I think in my personal experience with sort of Shinfield Parish, I think they do an awful lot of good work, but I do get the impression there can be a bit of an us and them feeling about that relationship. And I don't know whether that is widespread across other towns and parishes. And I agree that it's probably an area that does need to be focused on, but I was just wondering whether you have a plan for how that's going to work, because I think parishes do a great work in terms of the sort of on the ground things with lots of those things which I think can support the borough. But yeah, I think I know there are difficulties with what they perceive the borough is doing to them, and actually how as borough councillors we can help bridge that gap as well.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for your comments on the Corporate Parenting Board. I'm not a member, but I completely agree from what I've observed and heard. It's been really successful. On the relationship with town and parishes, this is really important to us. I think you're absolutely right that historically this has been a difficult relationship. There's almost inevitably going to be a kind of structural problem when you have a borough council and you have parishes and towns that have a role to play in their own communities, and the borough councils playing a role across the whole borough. There's almost inevitably going to be some degree of tension between the two. But what we're trying to do, and have been trying to do over the last few years, is improve that relationship, make it work better, and I think we've had some really significant successes in doing that. Jackie and Sarah and their team have been working very hard to try and get the relationship with the towns and parishes onto a better footing, and I think they've been having some really notable successes. I think it's probably important to recognise that there is no such thing as a kind of a parish model and a town model. These are all very different. They're different in scale, different in resource, different in ability to be able to do things in their own local communities. We're talking about, in the same breath, Wokingham Town Council, which is a significant player in Wokingham already, owns and controls quite a lot of assets in Wokingham, has a big budget, employs staff, and comparing that with Remenham Parish Council, which has none of those things and is a very tiny organisation. So we do need to recognise that we're going to have to develop different kinds of relationships with different kinds of town and parish. But I still believe there is an appetite amongst certainly the towns and the larger parishes to play a bigger role, and for the borough council to facilitate that. And I think we need to have discussions. It's to go back to your central point about this feeling that the borough council is imposed upon them. We want to get away from that. We want a genuine dialogue where there's some agreement on what kind of role towns and parishes can play in relation to what the borough council does. And I think that kind of adult conversation is going to be vital in the years ahead. I hope that helps.
I think Pauline's next.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Andrew. I've quite a few times, whilst on a parish council, found that people are saying, "Oh no, we shouldn't be doing that because the borough council should pay for it," and the borough council are paying for it elsewhere. And my view is that actually residents in general don't really care who pays for it as long as we get it. And if the parish council is best able to provide it, that seems perfectly sensible to me. But is there any activity about levelling the playing field so that, for example, just a random example, in Early, all the bus shelters are provided by the parish council, apart from the ones on a couple on the main road, which are advertising shelters. whilst in other areas it isn't like that. And when you're in a position where you've got less and less money, I'm just wondering if there's any levelling going to happen where at least we treat people consistently. And then if they want to have extra, then they can pay for it.
That's a very, very good point. Obviously, these relationships have developed separately from other towns and parishes over a long period of time. You know, special arrangements have been made and special recognition of particular local circumstances has led to this kind of patchwork quilt of different arrangements. Now, regularising that into one logical thing overnight would be very difficult and would be, I suspect, deeply controversial. So I can't promise that we're going to be able to do anything that's going to result in the kind of consistency you're looking for very quickly. But I think a conversation really needs to be had at a high level, really, about how we do things differently so that we can all collectively help provide the services and the facilities that the communities across Woking and Borough want. And I think, you know, in cash-strapped times, it makes great sense to me to work together rather than be at odds with each other and allow historic differences to get in the way of effective collaboration.
And I think what I'm looking for is some recognition of what the consistent offering for parish councils or town councils is. It's a bit the reason I asked for the a review of VCSs is to try and ensure a level playing field. And if everybody's sort of in the longer term understands what the basic offering the borough council will give is, then there's less likely to be contention about, oh, they get that and I don't get this, and I'm not paying for that because they should pay for it, and all that sort of stuff, which is really not very helpful.
You're absolutely right. And I think, again, in an era where money is very short, it's vitally important that the way resources and money are allocated is transparent and fair. And it has to be very clear, and it has to follow. We need a process, basically, in place so that we can ensure that any distribution of whether we're talking about money, resources, responsibilities, is done on an equitable basis and clear to everyone. So everyone understands, everyone can see what's happening. And we have to do it in a way that is as consistent as we can get it.
It obviously needs to follow the need as well. But it obviously needs to follow the need as well.
Yeah, indeed. That's got to be a key variable, is need as well as the desire for absolute consistency.
But I think if you define your basic offering, then I think that would probably help.
Yeah, I think that's a point well made. Thank you.
Andrew.
Sorry, I just wanted to add to that as well, because I think there's some good points there. And I think why I'm wondering really with the new relationship development, I think it could be a really important piece of work in the sense that I just wonder as well what the awareness of the borough is about the sort of different things that towns and parishes do well and what they do. And I think there's an element of between towns and parishes possibly sharing good practice about what works. I appreciate they're all different sizes and have different different resources and things like that. But whether they know what's going on, because I think within the ideas of partnership working and things, one of my examples was, and I think Catherine was there as well, I was at a Shinfield Parish meeting the other day, and at the School Green Centre it was absolutely heaving and buzzing because there was loads of youth clubs and things going on, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. And it's just, does the borough have that awareness of what is going on there? I mean, it's a very much growing thing in the School Green Centre, which I think is very positive. Lots of it parish run. And in the partnership working, is the borough seeing that and thinking, actually, we've got to focus on developing youth strategies. Are we aware that the parish is doing this, and is it something that the borough can do to support this? And you know, if not, see which way it goes, basically.
Yeah, I think we can answer your question positively, but I can see Jackie bursting to answer it, so I'm going to let her do so, because she and Sarah have been doing a lot of work in really improving our relationship with the towns and parishes and getting to know the towns and parishes, and enabling the towns and parishes to get to know the borough better too, because this is a two-way street. It's not just one side doesn't understand the other. I think there's an element of lack of understanding on both sides. So Jackie and Sarah have been doing a lot of work on this, so let's let Jackie come in.
Thank you, Stephen, and thanks for that, Andrew. You're absolutely right. I can see Hayley's got her hand up as well about the youth questions. I'll let Hayley come in a second. But you're absolutely right, and we do know what's going on at Chinfield. So Sarah and colleagues have seen that, and the way it brings the community together. So we do want to learn from that, and we do want to create those spaces elsewhere. So as you may be aware, we've got a micro-library there, which is perfect because you've got your cafe, you've got the young people coming in for events and stuff like that, and it works really, really well to kind of bring the community together. So yes, on all fronts, and every single month Sarah and I meet with 5 of the clerks, I think I've mentioned it here before, that represent the other 12, and so we talk about that sort of relationship all of the time and how we could make that better in an attempt to change the narrative. So we know what's happened before, but it's kind of like, okay, so how do we change the narrative and move that relationship forward? So we work as colleagues. We work in partnership, but we are colleagues. We're both in tiers of local government, so that's really important. And in answer to kind of Pauline's question about the process and having a level playing field, we're kick-starting those discussions now, Pauline. So they're really early doors, really early days, but what we're doing is we're getting some benchmarking information from other local authorities who have done this really well, working with lots of different parish councils. So, and we're bringing that learning to the table too. So, but definitely, yeah, we are open for a discussion for sure. Hayley, did you just want to mention something about the youth offer?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we completed a youth needs analysis, and that was published last year. And what out of that analysis, there came 8 recommendations, and a partnership steering group was established at the end of last year, who then developed an action plan off the back of that needs analysis. And the town and parish councils have representation on that steering group, and we've been working together to develop that action plan. And part of that is around the youth offer. I'm very happy to share that if anyone is interested. But quite a lot of work, I would say, has happened throughout 2025 around understanding that. And we've been having those conversations with town and parishes about how we develop the youth offer in particular areas across the borough where we've identified the need.
Oh, yes, please do share that. I'm sure we'll all be interested. Did you have something to say? No? Anybody else? No? Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much for the presentation. Okay, now, agenda item 72, which is Council Motion 529, the outcome. This is closely related to agenda item 73, and there will be some cross-reference between them, and you're perfectly at liberty to cross-refer between them as well. So, you're going to kick this off, are you? Thanks, Rachel.
Yes, thank you. If I can do a quick introduction.
I was just wanting to point out that on the recommendation on the first page, page 13, it is continued over the page. The sort of table format makes it look as if it might be something different, but the bullets go with the stuff on page 13. Sorry, Rachel, I just wanted to point that out.
Super, thank you very much. And as you said, because the 2 items are very closely related, if it's okay, I'm going to do one introduction to both of them. And I do apologise, I had some fairly major dental work done today, and I'm not quite as distinct as I normally am. So, two things today. As agreed in March 2025, we're bringing the response to motion 529 to this committee for your review before it goes to the executive. The other item is that Lewis Borges will be giving an update on the customer experience strategy action plan. And this covers everything that the council is doing, from working with our staff to making the best use of new technology to continually improve communication with our customers and community. There have been some huge successes here, such as reducing customer complaints in highways by 34% in just 1 year, and residents opening our emailed newsletters 5.4 million times. I wrote that out and I was reading it back to myself later and I thought, I must have got that wrong. It cannot be that number. And I went back and I checked. Yes. Opening them all. But I mean, that's absolutely phenomenal reach across our residents. And use of new technology means that we can provide residents with answers at any time of the day and night. And the team have been working to make sure that our website is as accessible as possible to as many residents as possible. And as a result, Woking Borough Council has satisfaction scores which are well above the average for keeping people informed. But before we get to that, the first item is the response to motion 529. This motion asks the council to consider the implementation of a system on the council website tracking issues raised by residents and providing regular updates on progress. The council chose to invest in engaging an independent review of this proposal. We engaged with Civitec, who are the professional government and local government body, to provide us with an objective review and to make recommendations. And we saw this as important to make the best decision for residents. And I'd like to thank all of the officers and the councillors who took part in that. So can I hand over now to Glyn Davis and Jackie Whitney? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. So yeah, as Rachel just said, so this is a response to the council motion. So we engaged with Civitec, who are part of Soccertim, who are a government advisory company essentially, and they did an independent review. So in your pack, you'll have the officer report, which is kind of summarising what was in the Civitec report, as well as Civitec's independent review. What Civitec found was that in response to the council motion, given the lack of integrations between many council systems, a new tracking system would be difficult and expensive to implement. Our view is that money and time will be better spent on a range of incremental improvements, as detailed in this report, adding integrations over time, especially with the Netcall CRM system. So what they're saying is essentially no wholesale implementation overnight of a council tracking system, but to look at it in an incremental way and to align it to when we kind of have big contracts, so essentially things like waste, blue badges, to look at it at that point in time, because that would give us the greater value for money in terms of integrating with those third-party systems. And in terms of their recommendations, they suggested that we took an incremental integration strategy, which I've just talked about, to look at how we can use service dashboards to surface information. So that's using data and business intelligence essentially to kind of make system information visible to councillors, the public and to officers, and also to kind of look at the overall user experience of our website, which we do with the web team, and to continue to kind of hear from the voice of our customers essentially through user testing to improve those user journeys. And also to look at our back office systems and how the information sort of flows. So once it comes in as a request, how it's kind of fed through the different kind of offices around the council. So the purpose of us being here today is to kind of hear feedback on what you see in the paper, for us to kind of consider that and then factor that into its ongoing journey to executive. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Glyn. I think we've got a question from Mark.
Observation and question, I guess. I read the report and I think it's probably what we expected, that given the sheer volume of systems that all of our different departments and everything else use, trying to come up with anything would be prohibitively expensive. And I think if we had ultimate unlimited funding, we would probably want to have a look at doing something. But given the current funding situation, it's not something it's justifiable when you look at the opportunity cost of spending that money here versus elsewhere. I do agree with the kind of the incremental process and trying to find ways of moving forward and looking at different systems and taking a different approach to when we're onboarding different platforms to see how it can integrate, where it can integrate, etc. So that kind of the continual process of looking at how we implement things in a more effective way. I guess one of the observations I want to make that I get a lot from my residents, I can go in quite easily and I can see if I've got the reference number for a highways report, I can go onto the website, I can put my number in, and 30 seconds later I can find out the status of where it is. We've had some challenges, I think, with people, and I've had a couple in my own ward, where you put a form in, you report something, and then it doesn't go to the right person. So I think I'm more concerned, perhaps, I think the priority for me is actually making it easy for residents to know that it's got to the right place and they can see the response. Highways ones are different because you get a ticket number back and you can track it. But for the other stuff, it's actually not as easy. I mean, as you know, my family have spent half their time living down in Chichester and they use Fix My Street. Other councils are looking at the same thing because at least you can then see from an intake perspective as a resident what tickets you've logged and the reference numbers and what tickets other people have logged to see all the same thing. So when you're looking at something that sits across 10 different portfolio areas or 10 different areas of the council, that's a far easier thing to do than to try and figure out on a map or anything else. So I think I've read the report. I agree with the recommendations. I think trying to justify £500,000 of spend plus the ongoing costs in our current financial position with the current level of grant funding we have over the next 3 years is a tough sell when you look at the cost of things you'd have to cut. I think from a resident's perspective, as I say, I'd like to understand how we make it easier in general to make sure things do go to the right place. And actually this is one of those where, we can unlock Copilot or whatever AI platforms we're using or other AI agents we're looking at to get the benefit of the intelligence you get from multiple systems. And actually where you get the AI systems kicking in, those agents, actually that's where, from a behind the scenes perspective, you can use those agents to pull in data from all of those disparate sources into one and start to find the trends, especially if you've got, a pothole, a fallen tree, heavy rain, a drain cover, something else. And all of those things do stitch together to make it easier. I think that's probably a better investment of time. And then the incremental view. Sorry, AI is a bit geeky for me.
There's quite a lot to unpack in there. So I think what I was just going to say, so I scribbled down frantically to some of the points. So I think the way to think about the website is, at the moment, it's a little bit like a patchwork quilt of lots of different systems. So councils across the country will have different systems from different suppliers. You'll know who they are because they supply to every council. So essentially what we've done is we've been on a bit of a journey over the last few years. So we've got a CRM system which we've been migrating over to. So some of the processes you've talked about there, Mark, around highways, they're actually kind of using our new CRM. So that's where you're seeing the reference number. So by taking an incremental approach, we'll start to see that kind of come through. So as we migrate more services over to the CRM and to expose it kind of publicly, that will give you a reference number essentially. One thing I would say though is there's no good as having really good digital services. We've got to make sure we've got really good processes behind the scenes. So that's where working with Lewis and Jackie, making sure that we're actually looking at the processes so that we can design digital services that meet those, because essentially that's where you get broken links and stuff like that. So yeah, we can take that on board and factor it into our kind of thinking, and you should see some of that when Lewis talks about the CX stuff later on and what we're kind of doing.
Pauline was first. Pauline.
I understand what you're saying. I think there's a couple of things that would really, really help if you're going to go down this direction. And we've had a conversation about them already, so I won't be surprised to you. I think the closed loop is important. there's an awful lot of wasted, failed demand because something's raised and then you never find out what's going on. So therefore something else is raised that covers the same subject. So you end up with lots and lots and lots of duplicates, which causes everybody grief. It causes councillors grief, it causes residents grief, and it causes officers grief as well when they get duplicates. So trying to engineer into your processes a requirement to respond would be really helpful, because they don't quite often. And that would be a great step forward if you can do that via process. The other thing is the ability to reopen stuff. So at the moment, if you raise something on, say, highways general inquiries, and the answer doesn't answer the question, you have to start again. And each time you have to put all the history in and open a new case. Now, if you could reopen a case, it would make it an awful lot more efficient for everybody, and you'd have the history. And I think the third thing probably is to actually make the responses from things like highways general inquiries. The responses from the officers are really good, but the responses from the system sometimes leave a bit to be desired. And it probably also be good to talk to us about what categories you've got there, because some things are quite difficult to fit into the categories that are available. So if I could have three things: reopening, closed loop, and the ability to put everything into one system. I think the other thing with highways is I think quite a lot of the stuff, unless it's changed, goes into the suppliers' systems, and it's closed when it goes into their system rather than when it's actually fixed. So, I mean, an example, I raised a dangerous pothole on Beach Lane a few days ago, and it was very dangerous and it was very deep. And I did it by phone because actually that's the process for dangerous potholes. I didn't get a response. I had to go up there to see if it had been sorted. It had been sorted. It was fixed very quickly, but it would be really nice to know about it rather than having to go and look. And I think that's the other thing. I think a feedback would be much better if we actually got some response about whether it's been done or not, or what it looks like, or even if it's. They tell you if it's not a pothole, but they don't tell you if they've fixed it.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with everything you've said there. What I'd say is we just need to make sure when we're kind of developing, so it's a continuous improvement, so we're not developing once, we're revisiting. So the things you've sort of given us, Pauline, we need to make sure they kind of go into our product backlogs. That's the list of things that we're looking to develop. But we need to make sure that those things are linked to kind of strategic priorities. So having that sort of thread back to kind of like the strategic direction, essentially. But yeah, all what you've said, we'll take that on board, Pauline, make sure it's fed into the report on its own
And I think
journey.
if you put it as part of the design criteria for new stuff, then at least we're not making it any worse. And then we can fix the old stuff as and when we, get into that old stuff, have to change it for something else. A lot of it's about mindset. An awful lot of it's about mindset rather than systems, but there is something about systems in there as well. It needs to be easy for everybody.
Shahid.
Thank you, Chair. Just following on what Pauline is saying, I mean, well, one or two observations and perhaps one or two questions as well. Issue is obviously who is our clients here? Our residents are our clients, and they're having difficulty. As Pauline highlighted, when you put in a request, somehow it just disappears in a black hole. They're not really sure what is happening, who's responsible for it, when they get the feedback, is the job done or not done, or when it's going to be done, right? So there's a real issue on a residents' side of things. Just looking at the report as well, I mean, this issue have probably been in this meeting for, scrutiny for quite long, and we've talked about integration for years now. And it just seems that we haven't made any headway at all. So the conversation we're having about integration between our systems is not a new, so goes on for years, right? And the problem has been there for years, but actually we haven't done anything about it. So we're still now here, which we were several years ago. We haven't moved on. That is my observation, right? We talked about the cost, which is probably $500,000, and plus the ongoing cost as well. Did we actually also work out cost of not doing the integration? How much is it costing us of the man hours the time it's taking for the officers to respond to the queries, because obviously you're going to look at the both sides, cost of doing the business, and also obviously, as a savings potential you can make of doing carrying on this project as well. So I can see the cost here, but I can't see the actually quantifiable benefits which we'll get if we do implement this. Because in some cases you might see that actually the benefits far outweigh the cost which we're incurring, because it's an investment with a greater returns in the long run. And I'm not saying that $500,000 is a small cost, it is, but it could be so the benefits. What are the benefits? The report doesn't highlight that. And also, when you talk about integration, I mean, maybe me coming from systems integration background, obviously there's a different types of integration we can do as well. The main thing is the data. We need to extract the data. It doesn't have to be a real-time integration as such, but it could be just pulling a certain amount of data which is required for those queries which is being asked, and that could be done on a regular basis. So we're not talking about full-fledged two systems coming together and joined from the hip, right? But it could be certain small, version of, you see where I'm coming from, which could actually increase, which could hugely beneficial for the queries, and it could be pulled together with a website. So I'm not sure, the report doesn't highlight that, whether there's a different types of integration perhaps could be done, and some of them could be very cheap as well, as compared to $500,000, which is high-sided. So yes, I can see the report, but I don't see the full picture here. And I'm not sure whether, this answers the question which have been raised in the motion.
So yeah, they're valid points we can take on. So yeah, I completely agree. The residents are super important. It's the reason why we're sort of here, and that absolutely we want to kind of have the best possible digital services so that we don't have that kind of failure demand and people kind of coming to us unnecessarily. When I said about integrations and us having talked about it, so we have got integrations in place on the website already. So things like blue badges, garden waste, and the new waste contract that's coming in, those are going to have integrations. The volume of systems that we've got, so in terms of back office systems here at the council, we've got over 200 systems. So you imagine trying to patch all those together, that is some sort of jigsaw puzzle to kind of sort of fit together. So actually one of the things it says in the report is around surfacing data, so like using BI and kind of making it available so people can kind of see data. You're right, you don't have to have a system with information sort of flowing from one to another. We can kind of present that in a different format. So that is something that we are kind of looking at, and it's part of our BI programme that we've got running as well. So yeah, I would agree, and we'll make sure that those are factored in to the report moving forward.
Can I just come back on that?
Yeah.
Do we have any timelines, timescales when we'll start seeing the output and the outcome? Because I've just said that because we've talked about this for a very long time.
I think, yeah, we've got some of the stuff that's happening through the CX work, which Lewis is going to be sort of talking about. But what we need to do is we need to kind of look at it is when the opportunity arises. So if we take highways, for example, we're in the middle of a contract, and actually us kind of introducing changes to that introduces kind of cost and complexity. So what the report is saying from Civitek is, at the point we're at a procurement or re-procurement, we should be kind of looking at that. But absolutely, if there's opportunities to try and make incremental changes, we will do that. So we're talking sort of years to kind of go through the whole sort of system, but we're happy to kind of come back and sort of report on progress and give you that visibility.
My question on, sorry, Chair. My question on cost of, or saying quantifiable benefits. Any feedback on anything on that? Well, in your discussion, I can't see in the report, but maybe this may have come up in your discussion with the company, because obviously you can see the cost, which is $500,000. What about the opposite side? If we did do it, what could potentially be the benefits? Are they quantifiable? Were they quantified?
Part of what we've got, and I think Susan and Stephen made mention of it right at the very beginning, is a productivity programme of work, which is really important. So we're looking at people, process and technology together. And that will quantify in a lot more detail what that essentially is. So for example, if there's a highways process or a council tax process or something like that, we'll look at that, we'll look at the customer journey, the current customer journey, and we'll look at where there's waste and where there's waste going out of the door, where we could essentially, it's called cost avoidance, avoid that cost essentially. Because you are right, you're absolutely right. So what we'll do is we'll resource up to cover failure demand, which isn't where we want to be. We want to reduce that. We want to understand where the demand's coming from, where it's avoidable, where it's failure, and then work to improve the process. At the same time, we can then look at the technology, because the tech is only very one part of it. You need the people to obviously work with the right processes and the right technology in order to get that saving. So as we work through the productivity programme, we'll be looking at the types of savings that we can make and quantifying those, whether it's cost avoidance or whether it's income generation or whatever that may be.
I was just going to, technology is absolutely an enabler in this, but one thing I was just going to say is in the report, the problem or the challenge we've got here, it's not actually unique to Wokingham. It's a challenge of integrating. It says, so a challenge of integrating heterogeneous local government systems is universal across the sector. So when I'm talking to my peers, we're talking about the same problems. Piecing all these systems together is complex. So yeah, we just need to kind of make sure it's knitted into the productivity programme so that we're kind of delivering that value for money.
Assume the answer to my question is probably no. I don't think that was considered as part of the report. That's what I was asking. So is that fair to assume that it wasn't considered?
Was it? I think we looked at the top 10 sort of processes essentially that we've got, but not the whole lock, stock and barrel, because that would take a long time. But that needs to be sort of factored in at each decision point essentially. We're going to have should we digitise it or should we kind of carry on with the current process? And that's going to sort of feed into kind of the ongoing business case as we're kind of getting at those decision points. But happy to pick it up outside of here and have a conversation about it, Shahid. Yeah.
Rachel?
Yes, I just wanted to comment, and I'm going here slightly, I think, into what Lewis is going to be talking about later, is that actually, while the council is looking to continually improve in this area, and they are always looking for those areas where improvement is possible, at the same time, satisfaction scores are actually very high, particularly in comparison with other councils. And as well as that, where we have neutral benchmarking, we come up with very high scores. I mean, one of the scores that I've got here is that our website is ranked 92 out of 100 on the Site Improved Digital Certainty Index score, which is much higher than the government benchmark, which is 83 out of 100, and that's looking at accessibility, content quality, search engine optimization. So actually, although we are looking at these areas where we can improve, we are already performing at a very high level.
Okay, I've got 3 people waiting, and the first is Pauline.
I know a lot of you guys are quite new to this, so this is not meant to be a criticism of current incumbents, but I'm just want to back Shahid up. I've been talking about this and asking for very simple things like closed loop, like the ability to reopen issues when they aren't resolved, like the way of getting feedback, since 2018, and I don't think we've made any significant progress at all. So what I would like to see is you go away and give me 2 things or 1 thing that you can do in the next 6 months that'll improve things, because I think the problem is it's so big that you can drown in it. I agree. I think it needs to have an incremental approach, and I'm just quite frustrated that we're still going round and round in circles rather than actually doing something, which is where you get the benefit. I mean, as far as the customer satisfaction is concerned, I'm astonished that our website is better than everybody else's. The search really still doesn't work. I think if you know what you're doing and you know where you're going and you know, like, map reporting is actually very good. But if you're trying to do something and you can't find it, it's really difficult. And that is extremely difficult to fix as well, because search, tuning search engines is almost a full-time job. So I understand why it's difficult, but I'm astonished that we're much better than everybody else, because it doesn't look it from my end of the telescope.
Yes, and it is true that we're
To
talking about
be fair, I
tracking
don't use
here.
every other council's ones. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we are talking about the tracking side here rather than the website side. So I think Pauline's got a point there. Andrew, I'm sorry, I did see Pauline before I saw you.
No, I was just, well, there's a couple of points here, some of them linking onto other ones. So I was firstly just wondering, is the customer satisfaction sort of, is it broken down by the sort of the sector and the type of response and things like that? Because I think that could give, you know, a good idea about the effectiveness. I mean, in my personal experience with these things, there's some systems I think which work really well, and some which I think, as we've mentioned, might need some tweaking to make it easier for residents plus councillors as well to access them. Which links on to the kind of second point, which is to what extent do we think it's the systems themselves which are the issue, and what extent is it the ability for residents and indeed councillors to use them in the right way, that they're clear enough? Because again, my examples, I think some systems work really well. I think my experience of reporting things like fly tipping, it's really prompt. You do it on the map and it tells you when it's done, and that's great. But there are other ones, I think, which have been alluded to. Sometimes when you make a report, you don't always get the response, or maybe it sort of closes the case when it's not quite what you wanted and things like that. And then I guess the third point linking onto that is, do we know how many queries, again, either from residents or things, are raised through the wrong channels, so that we can actually see which areas of the website people are using incorrectly, if that makes sense? It's like someone reporting a pothole instead of fly. I mean, I know that's unlikely, but reporting a pothole on a fly tipping site or something like that, so we can see actually which bits are not being accessed properly.
I think, yeah, it goes, so the adoption of, like, so if we're designing a service, probably one thing that we need to sort of focus on is actually how we kind of adopt and how we sort of communicate with other people. So yeah, we shouldn't just assume that everyone knows how to kind of do things. We need to kind of give support to our community in terms of can we see where there's people dropping off? Yeah, we can see when people are getting so far through a process. Also, we've got analytic tools, so we can see people's behaviour when they're kind of looking and how they're kind of working with the website. One of the things, though, what you find with the website behaviour is very few people come into www.wokingham.gov.uk and they go to Google and they say, I want to look up a planning application, and then that takes them through to that sort of point in the system. So it goes back to Pauline's point around search engine optimisation. We need to invest in that, because actually that's what people's behaviour is dictating, as they are using things like Google and Bing to kind of get to, not Wokinham's website. So it's just having the information in an accessible format that is going to help people, essentially. You look like you want to...
Yeah, no, I was just going to add to that, because I think that's exactly right, in the sense that when I've tried to do things as well, if I an example is, if I Google highways general inquiry, the first thing which comes up isn't the website, the bit to do a highways general inquiry, but a page on freedom of information answers on how many highways general inquiries were answered in 2024 or something like that. And there's been a few cases where I've searched for things and it's been freedom of information answers which have come up rather than the point on the website. Now, I know that's a really complex thing probably to get right in terms of Google, but I think that again, that might be a barrier for some people. I know sometimes I find it frustrating if I'm doing that.
Yeah, because like what Google essentially scans the whole internet essentially, and so we have no power as to, I suppose, what appears, how it kind of displays and picks. It's done on behaviour, but we can invest in sort of search engine optimisation to kind of help with that sort of process, because essentially what you're doing is you're clicking on something from that highways general inquiries and it's thinking, oh, you've picked and you're happy with the freedom of information link, you go into it and you're leaving the website, so it's never re-indexing that page, so therefore it's sort of staying where it is in your Google search essentially. But it is an area we need to invest in to look at essentially, yeah. But it will require investment and time to do that.
I'm a bit out of date, Glenn. Do you still use tagging, or is that finished now?
I would want to check with the web team if that's all right, so I can take that away and we can tag it.
That was always the way to get things higher up, is to tag it and not
Yeah.
tag the... Some people tag every word, which means it just causes problems.
Trouble is, Pauline, in the world of AI and agentic processes and LLMs, tagging doesn't have the same impact that it does.
No, that's why that's why I said I'm a bit out of date at the start of the question, because I know I am.
We'll go away and check with the web team, Pauline, and then we'll get you an answer to that.
Okay, Bassett.
Thank you.
Sorry you've had to wait for such a long time.
Well, we were discussing about agentic AI and then the tagging stuff. I think world is changing at a very fast pace. The main area where organizations mainly struggle, their number of people have not changed considerably in the last 10-15 years, but the amount of data that employees have to work has grown exponentially. So when it comes to business transformation, they usually work on the stuff to cope with the data, make the life easy, mainly around processes and tools bit. I would say if you prepare something from benefit realization perspective. Benefit realization can be sometime at the front end, direct benefits to the residents, and sometimes, we use the term in the delivery service, KPIs and supporting KPIs. I'm sure you have those supporting KPIs. If you prepare those and then make direct correlation, how supporting KPIs, the work which you're doing in the back, somewhere in the dark, which is helping you to serve the residents, and how it is helping you to support your main KPIs. Because I see that a lot of work has been done. I was going through your different KPI reports, which are there on different forums, and Shahid, I will share those with you. There are some tangible benefits which they have developed over the years. So I'll Glenn work with you, and then we can share together with Shahid.
I appreciate, and I think having benefits at mind is really key, because what we don't want to do is do a project and there's no benefit and waste a load of money and time. So absolutely happy to kind of work with you that on Bassett and to make sure that's factored into the executive report moving forward.
Shahid.
I think that's a good point, Bassett, you've made, is looking from the customer's point of view, what benefits they're going to get, and then what do we need to make that, deliver that. I just want to draw, most of the actually conversation tonight has been about website and their customer experiences. But I just want to draw everybody's attention to what the motion is saying, which is slightly different than what his ask is, right? So it's number one, just look at it, is I think it's 5, development of an online tracking system, right? So this is very specific here, what the ask is, right? So I see it as a different to customer experience of the website as such. Then second one, implement a user-friendly system on the council's website where residents can log in, track the status of their reported issues using their reference numbers, similar to the delivery tracking system. And just one more highlight, the service will serve as a one-stop shop for residents to view, track, and interact with the tickets they have raised. That is a different, I see it as a customer experience of the website. So I think that's what the discussion should be, and that's what the motion is asking for. I think we've seen less conversation of that and more of the experience of the customers, of the residents of the website. Yes, I mean, there may be a great website and they have getting good experience, but I just want to draw everybody's attention that is not what the motion is asking for. Is that that's reasonable?
Well, yeah, that's true. But in addition, what the consultant has come up with is saying that we can't actually do that. So what we've really been discussing is what you are saying that we can do. I mean, yeah, fair enough. I mean, I know that was what was asked for. And yes, we have strayed off into discussing the website in general. But anyway, Glyn, sorry.
Yeah, I think I just want to keep in mind, we're not saying never a tracking system, we're saying incremental. So actually, we'll be moving in a direction, and technology will change, and the way people interact will change, and we need to be kind of really cognizant of that. So I just want to remind everyone it's about incremental changes. We're not saying we're not doing it, we are doing it where there's benefit, and it's what our customers want, essentially. So it's incremental sort of changes, but I agree, Bassett, sorry, Shahid, it's around, you know, a tracking system and not the kind of whole lock stock website.
Just one more comment. So I will shut up then after that. I think it was highlighted by Mark as well. I think we moved on in terms of technology, but I still see in the report is a traditional way of doing things, not the new approach, which is up and coming. So I think hopefully, you know, we need to look at how new ways of doing things rather than what traditional ways are. So this is what I see in the report is more of a old mindset rather than actually what is up and coming. And I'm sure there's a lot of benefits can be taken from the new technology which is up and coming and which is being implemented, which can be done much quicker and also actually can save us a lot of money as well.
That's it.
So when it comes to digital transformation, there are legacy systems and then there are the most advanced system. Legacy system, usually it's not practically possible. It's not only WBC, it's across all industry sectors. So I would say we prepare something in terms of visibility where we say these 20 systems, 4 of them, their legacy, spending money on them would need more efforts than manually developing that report yourself. So in that case, we bifurcate them and then develop some kind of visibility, which Shahid is saying. I think we should be able, and that's where whole journey would be. You won't be able to get rid of legacy system very soon. So you have to live with them. I'm sorry, that's the reality all the networks are facing.
Okay, Pauline's got something to say, and then Stephen.
So could I request maybe that the committee asks the officers to go away and come back in 3 weeks, say, with one thing they're going to do that will move us towards this direction with a date when they're going to do it by, so that we don't end up going around in this circle for the next 5 years. Would that be a reasonable thing to ask for?
Stephen.
I think that, with all due respect, the committee must make its own decision on what it thinks is right, but 3 weeks, or deciding that you think 3 weeks is the time on the hoof, I'm not sure that's a great way of proceeding. I think it would be better to express a desire for as much urgency as possible, but setting a timeline like that, I think, is a bit arbitrary. I'm not sure let me finish my point, Pauline. I'm not quite sure on what you base your assumption that 3 weeks is the appropriate time. There's some really excellent suggestions made this evening in response to this report, and I think the officers do need time to digest those and actually take them on board, because they're going to redraft the report for the executive in light of the comments that have been made. If you're asking them also to come up with one thing they're going to do in the next 3 weeks, I think
No, you've misunderstood me.
I know you're saying in 3 weeks you want to be told what it's going to be. I understand that. But I just think you surely want to see all of the good suggestions made this evening incorporated and responded to in the report. That surely is the best way forward on this. Now, it's not my job to tell you what to do, so I'll leave it at that. But it does seem you've had a very full discussion on this.
I'm trying to get away from this broad front where you have to decide what you're going to do with everything before you do anything. we've got this terrible habit of doing paper after paper after paper, which covers the whole thing. And next minute, it'll come back in 6 months' time or a year's time, and nothing will actually change. We've been talking about this, not these officers, to be fair, but officers in general have been talking about this since at least 2018. If we continue to polish strategies rather than making a decision and do one thing that will improve things for the residents. And I'm not, 3 weeks is arbitrary. I just don't want it to be 6 months before we decide what we're going to do.
I understand what you're trying to achieve, and I applaud that in many ways, but I do think just selecting one thing and saying, well, do that, without recognising how it might affect all sorts of other things you might want to do. We've just been talking about better integration, better ways of getting things working together, and then we're saying, well, we should choose one thing we want to do. That seems slightly counterintuitive, but it's for you to decide.
It's the way I would do it in business, Stephen. We can't continue to write massive papers about things and not do anything. I think these officers probably know one thing that it's easy for them to do that will move things forward. If they don't, fair enough, they can tell me that. But I'm frustrated that we're trying to answer every question over every subject before we do anything. That's what's worrying me.
Can I just put it another way? Have you got any ideas about what you might do, what might be early in the pipeline? Let's put it that way.
So processes that are being, so it's no secret. So we are implementing a new waste contract, aren't we? So we're not going to be going live with the same digital processes that we see now. There is better process. So there's going to be integrations with the waste provider, which we don't have at the moment. So that's something that we're going to be doing. So that's June, isn't it? That's kind of contracts going live. But I'm not going to say it can be perfect on day one. We're delivering what we call like minimal viable products, so everyone will, in the digital arena will know what that means, and then we're going to be improving those services once they're up and running. But I'm really confident in saying that the waste processes will be much better and easier to use than what we have now on our website via a portal. So I'm happy to commit to that as an example.
And Glenn, will that include a closed loop so that if things go wrong, people can actually come back and say it's gone wrong rather than having to raise another problem?
I will come back to you with what the process is, Pauline, and we'll be.
You understand where I'm trying to go?
Yeah, and we'll be looking for people to test it as well. So user testing, so we can factor you guys into that as well.
Yes, as part of the improvements, Pauline, we'll be looking at the process for sure in the customer journey. So absolutely, we want to avoid that non-closed loop where it's not. So we want to work towards that closed loop. Absolutely.
So I get what you're trying to do, but you're trying to do incremental delivery. I want to see some incremental delivery.
Yeah, no, I understand. That's absolutely fine. So we'll use this as an example then to come back to you with, but just rest assured the processes will absolutely be looked at as well as the technology.
Yeah. Adrian, did you want to?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thanks. Sorry if I'm going over ground that people have already talked about. You talked about having 200 systems. Obviously, those 200 systems, the public does not interact with 200 systems. You guys know the key systems, so you should already have an idea what you're going to prioritise. And when it comes down to technology, you know, I've just been looking at Netcall, and they call themselves an omni-channel provider. So you should be able to link in to a HTTP call or a SOAP call or something, where you link into that channel, even via a relatively old legacy system, depending on the technology. Obviously, if you've got something that sits under somebody's desk and is not connected to anything, then that's not achievable. But the core systems should be contactable, even if they're legacy systems. So getting back to the point that was mentioned, I think if you come back with the prioritization of these are the top 5 and these are the reasons why, and if there's any red systems where you regard them as a key system for residents and councillors, but describe the technical blockage at even a very high level, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
I was just going to say, thanks, Adrian. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So we'll be looking at those universal services mainly, those with high volume. So those ones where we want to make the journey really intuitive for our customers so that we can keep them online so that we then have the resources to help those that obviously aren't digitally enabled. So, yeah, we can definitely pull together some of those. But they will be the universal stuff, obviously, the higher volume for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you know way more than I do about processes, and that is critical as well. It's not just the digital stuff; it is the processes in the background, and we have to be patient with that.
Mark?
Just as an observation, and I'm trying to remember where I'd come across Netcall from outside of here, but I remember through some work I did with the LGA, Camden have gone through the same process as us, and I'm presuming that we're talking to Camden because they've gone through exactly the same 30 plus legacy systems and seem to be saving quite a bit of money doing it. So.
Just be careful not to talk about a specific supplier, but there's a community essentially that we're part of, and that's one of the things with the system. It's about actually Camden can develop on our benefit and we can develop for them, so we can share processes. So yeah, that's very much in our thinking.
Copilot as well, just because it's public domain.
Okay.
I've lost sound.
I'm sorry, Andrew.
I was just going to make a very brief comment, not really a question. I think just relating back to some of the stuff that Paul and Shahid were making, I think it's sort of just worth noting as well that in the motion it does talk about things like things relating to a delivery tracking service in this one-stop shop. But I think, as was mentioned a little bit in the report, I think some of the things we've been talking about are those very transactional things which will work and lend themselves, I suspect, to that. But I suspect there's lots of things which maybe haven't been part of the discussion so much, which I think are more complex, and it's maybe thinking about what actually success looks like in those ones as well, because I think if I'm thinking again maybe a really complex send inquiry or something like that. That's not a transactional one where you can just say, oh, I've got my tracking number, it's been completed, because there's likely to be a huge level of varied outcomes that you could receive, some which will have various levels of satisfaction of it being achieved. Something like fly tipping, it's pretty binary. Yes, it's gone. No, it hasn't. But I suspect with over those 200 systems, the vast majority of those systems aren't binary, and probably the binary systems are quite easy to, probably the easier ones to sort out. But the vast majority of other systems probably are a bit harder. And yeah, I think probably think about what success looks like for residents and councillors, what that would look like in terms of resolving something like that.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we've got anything to add to the recommendation, have we? I think that's basically, other than this sort of letting us know about the pipeline, what's in the pipeline for the getting started.
I think, Catherine, it's about what incremental delivery we're going to get, and when we're actually going to get something that will benefit the residents rather than a chunk of paper.
Yeah. Okay. Right, well, we'll go on to the related item 73, because I'm sure Lewis has got some things to say about that.
Could I just ask Neil to clarify what our recommendation will be recorded as in the minutes?
So I think there's a recommendation in the report, and it's the points that Catherine just made about what we're expecting in terms of what's in the pipeline, early in the pipeline, and what the priorities are. And I assume you're expecting a report back in due course to clarify on some of those points? That's what I think my understanding is. I'm happy to take your views.
And I guess sort of September or something?
Looking at
That's a hell of a long time.
Well,
September?
Well, we can discuss that outside the meeting in terms of what is an appropriate time, but a commitment to come back to clarify the points raised tonight.
Yeah, or we can provide a written response. Yeah.
So, Glenn, what do you think is a reasonable timescale?
I'm going to take that away and talk to the planners and the people with more knowledge. So we'll come back and let you know, Pauline, rather than here now in the room.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's fine. That's fine.
And given that they've got this new waste contract coming, and that is summer, isn't it? That's earlier than September. They might even have done something by then.
Well, that's what I was hoping, yeah.
Licensing system as well? Yep.
Yeah, I think it's potholes, street lights, waste, fly tipping. Those are the major bulk items.
I think we should move on to, yeah. We have moved on. Lewis.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me back. Last time I was here, I was talking about the complaints annual report. So some of you may remember me from that. Tonight, I'm talking about the customer experience strategy, and it's a 5-year strategy. When this strategy was launched in May 23, I'm assuming many of you weren't on this committee then at that point. So, oh, you were, Alison. Excellent, long service. So you'll definitely remember some of the conversations then. The customer experience strategy is not just about process, which we have focused a lot on tonight. It's also about a cultural shift in the way that we deliver our services to our residents, which is why we're here and why we deliver our services to the communities. There was a lot of, just for context, there was a lot of background research and engagement before the strategy launched in 23 to really understand what was important to the resident. And this was around feeling listened, value for money, and that trust. That we're doing the right thing by them. And what we're here to do today, and what this report has set out, is where we are on that journey at the moment. So we're a little over 2 years into launch. It is a 5-year strategy. A lot of these things that we set out to do were never going to be achieved sort of overnight or by sending out one set of comms. This is a gradual journey, and through dedicated internalised training with our colleagues and officers, and also understanding the data and the way that it's being driven and can inform us. That's what we're doing to improve the service that we deliver. Now, actually, by design, not by luck, I've got a lot of skin in the game in terms of the process as well, because I head up the business change team that will be doing the process redesign of a lot of the services moving forwards. And was already alluded to by Susan and Stephen and then Jackie, we're setting up the governance for a productivity programme that will be at the heart of a lot of this activity. And that's why there's that kind of golden thread weaving through, which is why we wanted to bring the customer experience strategy at the same time as the motion, so that you can see that these aren't in a piecemeal sort of short way, that there is a lot of thought, a lot of design going into that. Now, one of the things that we really look at is the feedback from our residents. And this is where it links to that annual complaints report as well. So the annual complaints report is really, really data heavy and data rich, because when people are really upset and they make that formal complaint, they give us a lot more information, because generally there is something to be resolved or a grievance to be heard. What we do with the customer insight data, which is run by GovMetrics, which you've heard about before. So that's when you get a survey that when you've contacted us, or on our website, you get the smiley faces and you can have a bit more interaction. We measure against 4 key things in our charter, and it's all about how we've made the customer feel when they interact with us. Now, the bit that we do not do very well on, and I think, Andrew, you were talking about this earlier, is around that sort of first-time fix. And we know we've got some systems that are better than others on that, and we're targeting those systems in particular where there is not that closed loop that Pauline referenced, and where we don't actually get back to the customer when we say we should. So where we do really, really well, and we're very proud of it, but is that first initial interaction around the residents, so they feel listened to, they feel heard. We act with empathy and kindness, and we also give factually correct information at that time. Where we need to improve and work on is when there is some specific action that needs to happen, and it needs to come back. And Pauline's example of the pothole is a great one. So the initial report is actioned, the contractor goes out and does exactly what is needed to be done within that time frame. It's usually only a couple of hours for an emergency pothole, but yet the customer is still wondering what's actually happened, where's the assurance there? And that's why we hit that first time fix at around 59%, whereas actually we want to be in the sort of 70s or 80s for that. And I think we are in that sort of committed phase at the moment, because we want to get to embed, but that's the real cultural shift. So we are working with the directorates on that reporting mechanism. So where we're getting to is that each director has dashboards on their real life dashboards on their customer experience feedback, and we have customer champions within those areas who are able to help analyse and provide insight on why those things are happening. So it shouldn't be a surprise to us when some things go wrong, whether that be on our systems or interactions, because we can see it live. It's not. It still requires more development, but that's where we want to be at the end of the 5-year strategy. The report is quite detailed, I appreciate, and including the covering note. And we provided some appendix as well around the 3 Cs, which is part of our training, the checklist, and also the easy read version, because it's around sort of accessibility. But I'm trying to sort of convey that we're thinking about all the different factors and then using that to actually create our design that's being led by our customer. So I'm happy to take any questions or any comments or observations.
Mark has a comment.
And I just wanted to thank you. I think it's a comprehensive report. There's a huge amount of information here, and I think that all of these items line up with the previous one as well. I think this talks to the kind of the technology transformation piece that we've talked about for the last year, and the use of AI and different technologies, because if you start to get that coming together better, then it's driving down avoidable contact rates, or driving up avoidable digital shift. And for every call that someone's not having to make, I mean, that's saving us, what, £50 per phone contact? I'm not sure what our current cost per resident call is, but I'm imagining it's going to be £35 to £50. And if we can drive that digitally, then great. I just went onto our website tonight to have a look at something else, and the chatbot only gives me 3 options, and it's out of hours. Now, I think those are the easy wins, that when we're looking at that technology transformation, if we're wanting to make it easier for residents to find things, actually, that's where, you know, all of our AI bots that sit behind this and the agentic approach that we're taking can dramatically transform it. And I think the other part with folks like Netcall and other systems and other providers is, if you're starting to get that golden thread through a CRM system, actually having the ability to be able to kind of go, here's my email address, or I want to do this. And I've seen examples of other systems which I'll share with you where you can go, I'm just looking for an update on this, what's your email address, and find it. And then I found this email address in 6 different sources. So I think I'm grateful, I'm glad to see this, and I'm glad to see the kind of the areas of improvement in here as well, because I think the website, you know, I've made this comment in other places as well about website, public sector, local government, council websites are actually designed not to be as whizzy as private sector websites. So when you go to like British Airways website that's on earlier, that's a great site because it's designed for a specific purpose. Whereas council websites are not designed to be that. They're meant to be functional, usable, searchable, accessible, being probably the key element of all of it. So I'm grateful to see this. I think it's a good report. Glad to see the areas of improvement. Like to see a kind of an understanding of when we'll get the next update, and then I think it ties with everything we've been talking about tonight.
Thanks, Mark. That's really good. The chatbot actually has just been upgraded, so bear with it because we are adding to it the whole time. Yeah. I mean, it's really helped in terms of helping to manage that demand. But it is new, so just bear with, because out of hours, we do want it to answer more and perform better. So we're trying to kind of maximise the functionality on that. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, huge investment, and in the AI chatbots. We upgraded our telephonetic system just before Christmas. It was a huge piece of work that needed to be done, but it was kind of laying the foundations to then build on top of that. And with the chatbot, we're looking to try and reduce manual web chats by about 2,000 a year, which would come at a huge cost. And Mark, you just touched on it, that out-of-hours piece is going to be critical. And what we're looking to do is to make sure that AI is the enabler of the service rather than replacing the human support. I think that's really key for us here. And we can get very, the whole world is getting very, very excited about AI, including, children in classrooms that's helping them complete their homework and things like that. But, but in all seriousness, it needs to be an enabler. It needs to be treated quite carefully, and we need to understand it more. And particularly with our AI chatbot, if you put rubbish in, you're going to get rubbish out. And it's really important that we make sure that we treat it intelligently, and we make sure that we use it in that correct way. But it's absolutely an enabler, not a replacement.
Thank you. Can I just come back on one point as well? Does this ultimately extend into things like the phone system and the nav? Because I have to say, when I'm trying to get through to the right person, it's quite hard sometimes. Well, it's 'cause most of the time I don't know who the right person is. I had a question on, I have a question on the planning application in my own ward. That when you find it on a map, you can see it. When you click on the details, it's not there. So you can't, you can literally see what it is, and I know what it is. It's the new natural burial cemetery in Old Wokingham Road. But you click onto the details and you can't find it. You try and get hold of the right person, and I think I spent 15 minutes trying to get through the phone system to do it. So I think when we're looking at the repathing and we should be trying to avoid people calling, because the information should be accessible and easily to find, and that gets us here. I think the phone system and how we do the pathing of the phone system, if we're repathing forms and looking at the customer journey of a form, the customer journey of our switchboard systems and how other councils do it, and removing 28 menu options. Press 1 for this, press 5 for this, I've forgotten what it is, I'm in the wrong place, I'll go back, I'll redial, I'm in the back of the queue. I'm actually saying that I spent 3.5 hours trying to get through to HMRC today, so, no one's got it right. But as long as that's kind of part of the process as well.
Yes, AI voice assist is the next sort of move for us. At the moment, we have what I would call like a traditional IVR system. So press 1 for this, press 2 for that. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was probably at the cutting edge of local government IVR systems. But it's run its course now, and actually, we're trying to add more. We're looking at front door improvement as a part of the productivity programme, and that's a consolidation of contact centres, or looking at where those front door interactions are, and looking at our corporate centre as well, of how we deliver that. But ultimately, I think when I was here in November with the complaints report, what we want to do is drive down the volumes of calls that we get, and I want my customer service advisors to spend more time with those people that really need it. I don't want 5 people spending 2 minutes on a call. We want a 10-minute call for someone who really, really needs it. So this isn't about replacing people or that resident interaction. It's about making sure that the right residents get through to us.
Pauline.
Yeah, thank you for this. I think, to me, you're going in exactly the right direction. And I think, just to come back to Mark's point about websites, I think actually some of the really simple websites are actually good examples. I mean, I actually think the government website is really, really good. The search works extremely well. You don't get extraneous data. If you look for tax whatever, you'll get tax whatever. You don't get FOIs on tax or anything. I imagine they spend quite a lot of money on it, but it's not fancy. It hasn't got pictures all over it. It's just very slick. BA's website is only focused on one thing, really. It's quite simple. The intranet is quite a different matter. But yeah, no, I think this is great. Thank you very much, Lewis. And if you deliver this, it will make Glyn's job with the systems easier, I think, as well.
Thanks, Paul.
Caroline's next.
Oh, thank you. How do you manage a resident's expectation when you can't actually give them the outcome they want? Because I hear you have a complaints process, but it's the next stage, and I think that sometimes in customer service it's one of the most difficult things to actually deal, because I've worked in customer service most of my life. Thank you.
Okay, first, I think honesty and transparency is critical there. What I instill in my customer service advisors is that we don't promise something that we can't deliver, and we kind of run that through, whether that's within my change team, manage our internal customers, and not promising them the world. But for me, it's that honesty and that transparency, and that brings the integrity and then the trust and the value. Sometimes the answer is no, or we don't know. So if we don't know, there should be a commitment, like we have done here tonight, that we'll find out. It's making sure that if we say we're going to come back to you in 5 days, even if it's not with the answer, that we make that contact. And I think that comes back round to what we were just talking about when we log something on a system and we're just not assured that we're going to get the answer, but we don't know. Action might have happened, but we don't know, because how would we know? So it's, for me, it's around making that promise, that commitment, that even if we don't have an update or the answer isn't very palatable, that we deliver it in the right time frame, and that's our job. You know, we're customer service professionals. If we said yes to everything, we probably would have gone bankrupt a long time ago. But you know, that's the focus that we need to do. Sometimes we have to deliver messages that aren't palatable, but it's the way that we deliver it that's the key.
Shahid.
I'm not sure they're questions, but observations perhaps, and some suggestions as well, one or two. As we're living in Wokingham, we're probably blessed in a way that we have one of the most highly sort of educated, skilled, people, around, if you compare it with the rest of the country. So we're quite good from that point of view, but also it has an other edge as well. They're quite highly demanding because because they know what can be done, what should be done, and because they see that in the private sector and other organizations. So expectations become very high as well as a result of that. So that's why I probably got a more challenge in a sense. The thing, is where it says strategic themes and areas of focus. Obviously, it's very, excellent suggestions there. But also, what is highlighted here is also linked back with what we were discussing in the previous section as well. So the Pauline mentioned that if we can deliver this, that would be a really great success. The question is for me is if, right? If we can deliver this, right? It's a brilliant document, but obviously the residents will only see the benefits if it is actually delivered, right? And that's why in the series of meetings I have is, the strategy is only a document, but what the residents see are the benefits. That's what they want to see. So this is, again, the use of data, information, and again, these things, I suppose, this can't be done until what we were talking about earlier on is also implemented as well. So what my thoughts are that if we are having a challenge in terms of integrating our different systems and they can't talk to each other in an effective way, how will we get the right information? How can be an information-driven organization? How can we respond to the customer's needs based on the information? Because you can only base your decision on the information you have. If the information is not up to date, then obviously decisions will be based on whatever you're going to have. So there's a direct correlation I can see with the previous, previous sort of agenda we looked at. If we don't achieve that, we're going to struggle in this area. So correct me if I'm wrong, right? I can see the direct correlation here. And one suggestion, when it's about talks about the outcomes and benefits, trust in the council to spend money wisely and deliver value for money services. I think it's really important to get the trust of the residents, right? And I was looking at some other organizations and some governments to do it as well. The government of Norway, they publish their figures on the website, their revenue and different categories of that, and also their spend as well. And that actually increased their transparency in terms of what the feedback is great. You don't have to go into greater detail, but not in actually 300-page, buried in 300-page Excel sheets, but visually displaying how the council, I thought it'd be a really good idea if the council do something similar as well. Not to the, no, not to the, probably the one I looked at, right? On our website? Not the one I looked at.
Can someone put their microphone on and say that?
Shahid, I'm pretty sure there's a vast amount of information like that on the website already.
I'm just saying we do this already.
Sorry, maybe the one I was looking at, I was looking at the wrong page then perhaps, right? But definitely, maybe I was comparing, looking at the Norway website and also the council. So I think maybe I need to look at it again. But again, the point I was making is that, if we don't, actually if we are struggling with the previous agenda we looked at, we're going to struggle here as well. So I have a question mark whether we'll be able to achieve this.
Well, if you don't start with a strategy, you don't achieve anything, do you?
Stephen, I've seen so many strategies in this meetings, but they don't get anywhere.
I understand your scepticism, but as I say, if you don't start, you're never going to get to a destination. Saying you want to be at the destination, we need to have a strategy to get to the destination. And I think you have to accept that we have to start somewhere.
Well, we're 3 years into this strategy and some progress seems to have been made, which is what Lewis was reporting. So I shouldn't be too pessimistic, but Rachel.
I was going to say something very similar. I think that, yes, there is a strategy, but there is an action plan to deliver on that strategy. And I think a lot of what Lewis has put into the report tonight is showing the progress on the action plan. So very, very practical things so that we can serve our customers, our residents and our community better.
Alison.
So I simply wanted to ask, on page 50, where you've got the CRM transactions graph on the right, why is there such a big spike in March 25?
It's annual billing and also garden waste renewals. Sorry? Annual billing for council tax and garden waste renewals.
Pauline, I think, has a question.
I think actually Rachel mostly covered it. I was just going to say a strategy doesn't get you anywhere. It's a starting point. What gets you somewhere is a plan and a set of dates and a commitment to deliver. That's, strategies are very well, but yeah, that tells you what you're trying to do. The plan and the execution is the thing that benefits the residents. Until you get through that, you haven't got anything other than a bit of paper.
Dave.
Clearly, as part of this strategy, and I commend you for all the work you've done on it, one of our core objectives is to make residents feel listened to, feel valued. You list all of those things, but I think we need a consistency of message because, for example, if we do a consultation and then we don't listen to what the residents say and go against what the majority want, I think we're in danger of reducing resident trust. So we just need to make sure that if we're going to do something and behave in that way, we need to do that well, because I think the 24-hour speed limits showed that we didn't always make people feel listened to or valued in their opinions.
Stephen.
I think I understand entirely your point, Dave. It is worth remembering there are different forms of consultation.
Okay, any more? No? Right, okay. Thank you very much, Lewis.
Great, thank you for having me.
Keep on with the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to go on to agenda item 76 and have a look at the draft work. There's 75. Oh, the one on the other piece of paper, on the executive forward programme. Yeah, on the supplementary. Okay, let's look at it page by page. Page 1.
Sorry, where are you, Catherine?
We're on the Executive Forward programme on an extra. It's a supplementary agenda.
I'm not sure I've got that. It's all right, don't worry.
So page 1. How's it? Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Keep up, Catherine. Page 4. Where's the page 4? Open to page 4.
There's no page 4, that was an efficiency.
Yes, but what was on it?
It was a blank page, it was a formatting problem.
Oh, right. Called me out there. Page 5.
Will Seymour House be going to a scrutiny committee?
Sorry, Alison, what did you say? Can you just repeat what you said?
WBC 1547.
What was that?
When is Seymour House going to overview and scrutiny, was the question. Neil?
So all the items don't go unless members request that they go. So if members would like that to go to scrutiny, then that's a conversation to be had with the relevant chair and director.
Is that not a decision for Overview Scrutiny Management Committee to decide if it's appropriate to be scrutiny and which of our subcommittees should look at it?
Well, do you want it to go to a committee?
Well,
are you
I
recommending
have
that
known,
it should?
I have known this column not have dates in that are already on agendas, so my first question was simply to ask if it had already been put on the agenda of a committee that I don't sit on, so I wouldn't be aware of it.
We can check that outside the meeting, Chair.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Neil. Okay. Right. There's page 6. That's page 7. Well, there's nothing on page 7, is there? And then there's the individual executive member forward programme. I think there's just the one page. Okay. Okay, agenda item 76 now. Overview and scrutiny.
Sorry, Catherine, just before you move on, can I?
Okay.
Sorry. I think at the last meeting we had a discussion about bringing the decision-making process back here at some point. Neil, the one that decided when you consult and when you don't, when it's an officer decision and when it's an IEMD, and when it's an executive decision and when it goes to council, preferably, mainly the bottom bit. I don't have that paperwork, so I wasn't sure if that's in there somewhere. Thanks, sorry.
So the plan is to bring that to the March meeting of this committee?
Thank you.
Right, yeah, March the 17th, on page 100.
Sorry, which item is the Pauline's point that she wanted to put on the agenda?
I mean, what was the...
We're on to the work programmes now.
Yeah, but what was the... what
That was that review of decision making. That's
review of decision-making process unscheduled?
It's coming in March now.
But it's... But why isn't it in the...
Because I've just updated you since this was published.
Oh,
it's a question of time.
sorry.
It's coming in March.
Okay, all right. So any other comments on page 100 or 101? Or 102, climate emergency? Some funny formatting here, Neil.
I was in Australia, Chair, that's my excuse.
Well, it should be upside down then.
I'd blame Microsoft.
No, any comments? Page 104. No. Right.
Chair, could I just say that HOSC have got an agenda item in March looking at lessons learned rehabilitation programmes, which I think Pauline would be interested in attending or viewing online, because it's talking, I think, about what officers and the executive, I think, have learnt from the governance structure, and perhaps what things didn't go as well as we would have all liked.
Or not.
Yeah. Is that okay to say, Stephen?
No, that's completely fair, yeah.
Yeah, I would like to go to that.
Okay. Let's go on to agenda item 77. The action tracker. Has anyone got any questions, comments about page 105? 106? Or 107? Right, okay.
Yeah, when do we take all the completed ones off, just so we can see the wood for the trees?
Well, I think that's at the end of the municipal year, isn't it? Isn't that
I don't know, was that...
What was the question, sorry?
Taking all the completed items off so we can see the wood for the trees?
Yeah, we'll review it after this meeting, and then obviously we start again in the new municipal year, so we'll thin it out then.
Thank you.
On the very last item of, what do we call this, action tracker, and the additional column to the executive forward programme, it says officers are developing this. Well, it seems to be in place now. It doesn't need any more development, does it?
Well, I think I do that, but obviously I was away and my colleagues weren't aware, which is why last time we didn't have it. But now I'm back. It's back in place.
I just sort of felt we could have marked that completed, really.
10 out of 10. Sorry. Okay, right. Now we go on to item, she flips back, 74. Thank you, Neil.
81.
It is on page 81 of the agenda. And Jackie is going to introduce it.
Thanks, Catherine. So this agenda item was a request from the committee, which requests a report setting out details of the resources allocated through to the voluntary sector organisations across the Wokingham Borough. So you'll see the covering paper has information on it around the value that we place on partnering with voluntary sector organisations who do great work across the borough, and they can reach people essentially that generally the council can't sometimes. Within the paper also you will see that there is an attachment which lists not only the properties where some of our voluntary sector organisations reside at the moment, which are owned by Wokingham Borough Council, But there's also an attachment there which includes the amount of money, grants, commissioned or non-commissioned, that are paid to voluntary sector organisations. There are hundreds of voluntary sector organisations across the Wokingham Borough. Obviously, we commission or work with only a few of those. I have to say thank you to Pauline for spotting the omission. There are 2 omissions from the list, from the report with the listing of the amount of money, the grants and funding that we give. Apologies for that. The reason it was missed off is because it's a transport. There's 2 transport ones. So what I will do is I will take the action to update the paper and then recirculate to you. But you have essentially the rest of the voluntary sector on there. The other ones were transport. So apologies for that. But thank you, Pauline, for spotting that. And happy to take any questions. I've got with me Sarah as well, Sarah Morgan, because we have a part 2, obviously, to discuss. I brought Phil Bell as well from Involve University. Thanks, Phil. Thank you for staying, Phil.
Thank you, Jackie. I think Pauline's got a question.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jackie. This is it's very, very good. And it was really useful to be able to see how the resources were being spread across the different subject matters. If you're going to add the 2 transport ones that were missing, just check there aren't any more, because there might be others that I don't know about in terms of transport. But yeah, I think there might be. Yeah,
will do. Thank you.
It's all right. But thank you. This is exactly what I was looking for. Now you've done it. You've now got a view of where the council are investing in third parties, which is fantastic. And as Stephen said, you couldn't run the council without these outside bodies. Is there any obvious gaps now that you've looked at it that you think everything's a bit lopsided, or there's a lot in one place and not in others? Anything that springs to mind from your point of view?
I think it's quite difficult, actually, because some of these organisations are supporting us in delivering some of our statutory services, and most of the services, most of the funding, if you look, are for across children's and adult social care, also homelessness prevention as well, where we're covering some statutory, and there's obviously some non-statutory pieces of work in there as well. So quite difficult, because obviously those are the key areas where we look for support for that. But obviously there is more that we can do with voluntary sector organisations. I've also got on Teams Hayley and Wes as well, because obviously being big commissioners of the voluntary sector organisations, I've just made sure that if you have any questions, you can come to them. I don't know if Wes, Hayley, if you have any observations or anything you want to share.
Just to respond to Pauline's comment, really, we are undertaking at the moment a joint strategic needs assessment, which we're as part of that work, it will look at what we're kind of delivering at the moment, but also identify particular areas where we may have gaps. So there may be things that fall out of that, which will inform commissioning decisions going forward.
Yeah, thank you. That was the intention, was to make sure we haven't, because it is very youth and very adults focused looking at it, and that's perfectly understandable and probably completely correct. But yeah, I was just interested. There only seems to be one community body in terms of minorities, and I think there's only a couple of sports ones I could see, but one's sports council and one's football, and that might be fine. But I just wanted a view of, what you think is appropriate, because I don't know, and that would be really useful when you've done that. So thanks, thank you. I think it's a good piece of work. Thanks very much.
Wes?
Just from an adult social care perspective, so we're recommissioning the community wellbeing and prevention services for adult social care at the moment, and that was reviewed by HOSC on the 28th of January, ahead of our procurement activity for an open tender process.
Thank you. Has anyone else got any questions? Dave?
What steps, obviously these are all look very laudable causes to me, and I think on surface it looks really good. But I just wanted to understand what steps we take to make sure that the council money that we're giving is spent as well as possible, and how we monitor that.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So we've got various ways of doing that. So contract management, so through our contracts and our commissioning processes, we obviously work really, really closely with our voluntary sector colleagues. Reporting is really important, monitoring, obviously, and outcomes. So outcomes are really important because obviously value for money and getting the best thing for our community and our customers as well, that's really important. If it's grant funding from someone like the DWP, for example, we have to provide reports, we have to provide plans of how we're actually going to distribute the money, what the money will be spent on, and then regular reporting back to them as well. So there's more scrutiny from other bodies that provide us with grants and stuff too. So it's a multitude of ways essentially, but outcomes are the things that we're looking at for sure.
Have there been occasions where the council hasn't been entirely happy, and what have we done to help sort of improve that, whether by either changing the funding to someone else or helping that body improve the deliverables and outcomes?
Yeah, oh, sorry, there's some hands up as well. Sorry, I'll come to you in a sec. That's a great question. There have been, since I've been here, there has been an occurrence. But by close monitoring and early warning, that's what you get. So if you monitor a commission very, very closely or a contract really closely, you get an early warning sign and you know when something's not quite right. So essentially, because we've been monitoring really closely, we've been able to sort of speak to the providers and get in early doors and resolve stuff. So working through our partnership framework, we've created a partnership framework of when to partner and how to partner with organisations, with openness and transparency and clarity, and just being honest with people and saying, actually, this isn't what we expect. Just to reconfirm, this is what we expect. And then obviously working with each other as equal partners around the table, essentially.
Yeah, nipping things in the bud, I think, sounds really good. And I'm pleased you've actually discovered things, because that's always a good indicator that the monitoring is working. I think if you discovered nothing ever, then there's a suggestion that it may not be adequate.
Did you want to come in? Oh, sorry, Steve.
Yeah. So, Steve, did you want to go first, or?
Wes Stevens. So, yeah, go on.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Sorry. Just to add, so in our social care, we've got 25 contracts with the voluntary sector, and in addition to the quantitative information we get through our KPIs through the contract management process, we think for us it's really important to share case studies and understand the impact that the sector is having through some of those stories that we hear from the sector, to really understand the impact that it's having on the community.
Stephen.
Thank you, Catherine. I think this is a separate point to Dave's, but there's a connection. And that is really, I just wanted to thank all of our voluntary sector partners for the work they do to help our communities across Wokingham. I said earlier on about the Empower survey 18 months or so ago, which ranked us 5th best in the country in terms of productivity, in terms of outputs achieved per pound spent. Now, a lot of that is because we work so effectively in partnership with our voluntary and charitable sector partners. And I think I just wanted to put on record my gratitude for that. But I think you're absolutely right. We do need to monitor that spending properly and make sure it's producing good value for money. But the evidence we're getting from things like the Empower survey is that in general terms, that is the case.
Pauline?
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering, are you going to do this again, or is this a one-off exercise, or what? Is there any benefit of it long term?
Yeah, I think that there is. We've created, as you know, been speaking to you, Pauline, about our more cross-council working, and I think working more closely, with Wes and Hayley, obviously on the call, and others. I think particularly around our prevention programme of work. I think if we come together, we're stronger together, and we can understand what needs to be done in our communities to help people much, much more, and therefore come together better to commission that work with the organisations that we need to deliver, if that makes sense. So I do think it's a good exercise for sure. hopefully it's not one that we're just going to stop, because through the prevention programme of work, as I said, we'll work cross-council and choose those organisations, obviously, that are best placed to deliver in our communities and help our residents.
It would be really, really interesting to try and take it this step forward that Dave was talking about, which is actually try and measure the value from each of these. But that's really, really difficult. I think having visibility of what we're spending is a good start. Do you know what it adds up to?
Over an annual, do you mean all the numbers on here? At the moment, it's just over 4.3 million.
That's a fair amount of the budget, then.
Yeah, for sure. But worth it, because obviously, as I said, the reach that our local voluntary sector organisations have, you know, people may not walk through the council door, but they may go to their local charity or community group. So, yeah.
And it's probably better for them and better for us.
I think that's right, Pauline, and your point about difficult to measure the value is absolutely spot on, because, of course, the value isn't purely monetary. Some of this is about expertise, knowledge, experience that we're now able to get access to because we're working collaboratively and in partnership with the voluntary sector. And I think that's a collateral benefit that's really difficult to measure.
Wahid and then Beth.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I just want to echo the point which Stephen made. You know, some of the charities we have, they do an amazing job. I think they need commendation and, you know, appreciated publicly, you know. So, you know, all different sectors, whether it's children's or adults or all other areas. I was just looking at some of the list, Jackie, and just thinking that obviously our population in Woking is a diverse. The question going in my head is, are we engaging with a different demographic and the charitable sector, especially the ethnic minorities? And I'm not sure how I can see that on the list, right? Probably there is a list somewhere which is I don't see, but I just want to be reassured that we are actually engaged with the different demographics and all the diverse communities which live in our borough.
Rest assured, we definitely are. Just because they're not on this list, it doesn't mean to say that we're not engaging with them. Not all of our community groups and things do we fund or do we give resources to, but they do give time to us, and they do input into early doors into some projects and things that we're doing, and we do go out and visit them. So through Sarah and her community engagement team, we go out and we regularly visit these organisations because they know the areas better, they know, you know, the communities essentially better, so that's the better way to sort of get out and speak to them. But yeah, rest assured, just because they're not on this list doesn't mean to say that we don't work with them. It just means that these are the ones that we do commission.
Beth and then Alison.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to echo what Stephen said about value, and I'm very lucky that I've seen some of this value in my ward with some of our children leaving care. And it's nice, very nice, that local members are involved and know what's going on. But we see the value of our children in care becoming well-rounded, able to cope, able to look after themselves and move on in life, adults. And I think we've got a lot to thank both our staff and the voluntary sector there in what they're doing for those little children that grow up and bloom in our care.
Yeah. Alison.
Hello, can I just ask you about on page 90? I think there's some errors in this report. Now, as far as I'm aware, Tell Me is our online mental health support for children, young people, and it seems to have the description of Home Start in the column. And then the Me Too Club, Make Sense Theatre, Thumbs Up Club and Chance to Dance. I'm not aware they provide short breaks, you know, to children with disabilities, but they do offer fantastic opportunities to engage in theatre, in dance, and Me Too Club to be able to attend a whole variety of youth activities without their parents to support them. So while I'm really pleased to see this report, it's slightly disappointing that those descriptions are not correct.
Hayley, did you want to take that?
Yeah. So the Tell Me one must be an error because they are our online mental health support app. So apologies for that. In terms of the Chance to Dance, Make Sense Theatre, they are our short break providers. So we have a number of children who are accessing those charities in order to provide them with a short break. That's specifically what we commission those providers for particular cohorts of children.
So by a short break, is that, you know, within a daytime rather than indicating short break being a night or a break to me slightly indicates it's longer, because we do have some people who offer that.
It's very much needs led. So it might be an after school club, it might be an overnight stay, it might be an afternoon, it might be a Saturday morning. It's very needs led by the particular children. So that's through our Children with Disabilities and Short Break Service, they would identify with the family what they would like. So particularly with Make Sense Theatre, Chance to Dance, they are parental preferences around what they would like as part of their short breaks package. So we have commissioned them in response to that.
Okay, I think that's simply the normal sense of a short break being slightly different to the opportunities that they're being offered.
Okay, are there any more questions? Oh, Pauline, sorry.
Sorry, Catherine, I only just put my hand up. I was just thinking that this actually might be useful for councillors in general as a list, not necessarily with all the money on it, but just so that people can know where to refer people who need help, and say, yeah, Woking Borough does support these, and maybe just to tell people what's available. I think it's been quite illuminating for me about the things that I didn't even know existed. And the second question, Jackie, was, I can't see it on here, but maybe it's got a different name or maybe I've missed it. But also, is it, I know I'm going to make a fool of myself because I can't pronounce it, but is it Rehoboth?
Sorry, say again.
It's Rehoboth? What's it called? Rehoboth?
Rehoboth.
Help me, Beth.
Oh, Jack. Yeah, Rehoboth. Yeah, Jack.
Yeah. Are they in here somewhere and it's just called something else?
I don't know if they get any better support.
I don't know how to take it away, Pauline.
We certainly use them, but the question is, do they get any support? And, you know, I mean, probably the follow-on question from this is, are the people that we're buying things from transactionally that we might actually be better commissioning?
Yeah, well,
but anyway, that's the next question.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We'll take it away. I'll take your first question away. We'll make a note of that. And then, sorry, what was your second question?
It was sort of a follow-on from that. It's once you're clear about what you are commissioning,
yes,
and have a complete list, are the people that we're dealing with transactionally, that we spend a lot of money with transactionally, that actually might be better for them, easier to plan and more cost-effective if we commissioned them instead?
Yes, yes, yes. We'll take that away.
I think that's the next question.
Yeah, I'll take that away, Pauline. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, has anyone, if we haven't got any more questions on that, has anyone got any questions on the pink pages? Do we need to go into part 2?
Not for me.
Caroline? Well, we need to exclude the public if we're going into part 2. So I have to read that out. Yeah, okay. So, exclusion of the public and press. To determine whether the item will take place in public or private session, the committee may exclude the press and public in order to discuss any part 2 issues. To do so, the committee must pass a resolution in the following terms: that under Section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act as amended, as appropriate. So we all have to vote? Yeah. Hands up. Yep, that's unanimous, I think. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, could we just get a clarification whether Phil is allowed to stay in for part 2? Phil's invited by us as a rep in this part, but he's not involved.
Just to support this paper.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. And he's been so patient, waiting all this time. Could hardly exclude him.